When people talk about Adama Traoré, especially in the political or activist realm, they usually place his work in the context of resistance against French institutions, policing, structural racism, or colonial legacies that continue to shape modern France. To many, Traoré is a symbol of defiance against a system that has, in his view and that of his supporters, failed communities of color. However, focusing solely on France as his primary obstacle misses the full picture. Increasingly, the more nuanced and potent challenge to Traoré's influence comes not from state structures or right-wing pundits, but from a man standing just a few steps away from him, Michael Langley. Langley, unlike the institutional apparatus of France, is not an immovable force. He's a mobile, strategic, and calculated adversary, one who understands both the language of power and the internal workings of movements. And that makes him dangerous in a way no faceless bureaucracy or overt opponent can ever be. Where the state can be protested, sued, or exposed, Langley is subtler. He disarms not by confrontation, but by co-opting, redirecting, and discrediting from within. The internal challenge. Traoré is a man who thrives in opposition. His rhetorical power, activist energy, and symbolic strength all sharpen when aimed at a clear target: the state, the police, the policies that he sees as oppressive. His power comes from his ability to frame a narrative of resistance that resonates with those who feel marginalized or silenced. Michael Langley presents a unique and more personal threat because he doesn't oppose Traoré from the outside. Instead, he stands within the very space Traoré attempts to dominate: community leadership, reform discourse, and the arena of social change. Langley positions himself not as an enemy of change, but as a more reasonable architect of it. That's what makes him such a potent adversary. Langley speaks in moderation. He appeals to institutional actors, international audiences, and progressive reformers. He never outright denies the legitimacy of Traoré's grievances, but he reframes them in a way that neutralizes their edge. To Traoré's fiery rhetoric, Langley responds with statistics, reports, and policy memos. While Traoré shouts from the barricades, Langley sits in boardrooms with decision-makers. The battle isn't one of ideology versus repression. It's a battle of visions, radical transformation versus incremental progress. And increasingly, Langley's voice is being seen by many as the more palatable, more constructive one, even if it means less urgency, less emotion, and less confrontation. A battle for credibility. What keeps activists like Traoré powerful is credibility. The belief among supporters that he speaks for them, that he won't sell out, that his fire is untamed and uncompromising. Langley is a direct threat to that credibility because he offers a different version of leadership, one that seems more organized, more collaborative, more serious in the eyes of political elites. And when the media, funders, or policymakers begin to treat Langley as the adult in the room, Traoré risks being painted as a loud, but ultimately impractical, figure. This isn't just about public relations. It's about the very core of influence. Traoré's strength lies in his ability to mobilize crowds, spark outrage, and galvanize youth movements. But Langley speaks the language of institutions. He knows how to build coalitions, navigate bureaucracy, and implement gradual changes that look impressive on paper, even if they don't address the root causes that Traoré is fighting against. In this way, Langley isn't just challenging Traoré's tactics, he's challenging his relevance. And in movements where internal legitimacy is everything, that's a profound threat. The politics of respectability. Langley embodies what's often referred to as the politics of respectability. He's clean-cut, composed, articulate in a way that comforts the establishment. He doesn't protest loudly. He holds panels. He doesn't demand abolition. He suggests reform. He doesn't unsettle the status quo. He partners with it to tweak its excesses. This strategy is both his strength and his danger. For those exhausted by endless protest cycles, Langley looks like a solution. For those wary of change, Langley is the compromise they can tolerate. For those who control resources, money, media, power. Langley is the ideal interlocutor. Traoré, on the other hand, rejects these politics outright. To him, this model is a betrayal. He sees it as performative, ineffective, and, worst of all, complicit. But the more he criticizes Langley, the more he risks alienating those who now view Langley as a legitimate changemaker. This tension isn't new. It's played out in every social movement. From Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. to Mandela and Biko, there's always a dialectic between firebrands and diplomats. But in the current moment, the global appetite for moderate, media-friendly narratives means that Langley is gaining ground, while Traoré is being painted, fairly or not, as inflexible or outdated. A threat of co-optation. Langley's most dangerous move isn't to oppose Traoré, but to absorb him. There's already talk of joint initiatives, shared statements, or reconciliatory gestures. But these aren't acts of solidarity. They are tactics of neutralization. By inviting Traoré into rooms with conditions, Langley forces him to compromise or appear unreasonable. If Traoré accepts these overtures, he risks losing his identity as an outsider, a revolutionary, a truth-teller. If he refuses, Langley can claim he's being divisive or obstructionist. It's a no-win situation, and Langley knows it. This is the ultimate danger. That Traoré's movement, his message, and his passion will be subsumed under the polished, institutional brand that Langley represents. A revolution becomes a policy paper. A call for justice becomes a workshop. The personal undercurrent. Beneath the political rivalry lies a more personal tension. These two men are not merely symbols. They're human beings with egos, histories, and scars. Traoré likely sees Langley as a betrayer of the cause, someone who abandoned the street for the suit. Langley likely sees Traoré as reckless, someone who alienates potential allies with his rigidity. This personal animosity matters. It adds a level of heat that can't be ignored. Every public statement, every veiled comment, every failure to mention the other's contribution, it's all part of a deeper psychological conflict that fuels their divergence. In the end, this isn't just about different strategies. It's about who gets to define the future of the movement. And for Traoré, watching someone like Langley rise isn't just frustrating, it's existential. Adama Traoré's fight has always been cast as one against a monolithic state or a racist system. But today, his biggest threat isn't France itself, it's Michael Langley. Not because Langley is more right or more moral, but because he offers an alternative model of leadership that dilutes the urgency Traoré represents. Langley is not the enemy of change. He's the rebranding of it. And in this era, where image, language, and political palatability matter as much as principle, that makes him a formidable rival. The revolution Traoré wants might still come, but it will have to get past the gatekeeper in his suit before